Yo, what up, guys? We're on the clock. Welcome back to 6 Month Madness. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. We're happy to have you. Me and Julian are weekly breaking down college basketball, everything that's going on around the NCAA landscape. And, if you don't know, well, now you know. We start off every single week going through the top 25 teams in college basketball. So we're proceeding to do that now. Currently, the standings are North Carolina 1, 2 Gonzaga, 3 Houston, 4 Kentucky, 5 Baylor, 6 Kansas, 7 Duke, 8 UCLA, 9 Arkansas, 10 Creighton, 11 Texas, 12 Indiana, 13 Auburn, 14 Arizona, 15 TCU, 16 Virginia, 17 San Diego State, not South Dakota State, San Diego State, 18 Alabama, 19 Illinois, 20 Michigan, two back-to-back Big Ten teams, 21 Dayton, 22 Tennessee, 23 Texas Tech, 24 Texas A&M, and number 25 Connecticut. Some other teams receiving votes: Michigan State, Purdue, Villanova, Miami, and St. Louis, to name a few. We're going to break down some storylines that are going on. Julian, do you want to kick it off with some of our top 25 storylines so far this season?
Well, let's talk with the fun stuff. There were some upsets this week, baby.
Yeah.
Four teams. Well, so TCU technically has not been moved yet because they lost last night. But four teams in the top 25 have lost in the last week. We
Mm-hmm.
got TCU last night going down the Northwestern State, the most recent. On Sunday, Tennessee did not look like they were a good team against Colorado. I had to talk to y'all about Tennessee, how I wasn't impressed last week. There you go. Oregon shockingly goes down to UC Irvine, and for the first time in over 10 years, Temple beats Villanova. I mean,
That
look,
has been
the
crazy.
storyline across all these games was shooting. Um, Tennessee, 10 for 37 from behind the arc. That's abysmal. TCU again, not a great shooting night. Oregon shot under 30%. Nova only took 7 threes, which for them is very, very weird. Um, they need Cam Whitmore badly. They followed that game up with a struggle against Delaware State where they started the game 0 for 17 from three. Um, so I think it's good to see the top 25 get shaken up. A few teams got exposed. Again, we saw TCU narrowly hang on last week against Arkansas Pine Bluff. Didn't have Mike Miles this week, and that may have been a part of it. But, I think it's good that we got some shakeups because there are going to be a lot more this week.
Yep. I mean, speaking of right now, Georgetown's one of those teams that could be on the outside, and they're getting upset right now, technically, by Northwestern. And there's a lot of big games going on tonight. I mean, obviously, if you guys didn't know, we record these on Tuesday nights, upload Wednesday morning. There's some teams in action tonight, and more specifically, there's some good teams in action tonight going against each other, which is something that we really haven't seen so far in college basketball this season. I mean, it normally takes about this time. We talked about some of these games last week. If you weren't there, but Kentucky and Michigan State are obviously playing right now as we're speaking at 7:18 Central Time. Their second half is just getting underway. They're about 5 minutes in. It's a close one, 42-42 at the moment. But I mean, talking about the top 25, I think it's a little early to say anybody is, we should count them out. Like, I think a team like TCU, Mike Miles is an impressive player, but he didn't play against, obviously didn't play against, they lost to Colorado, right?
No, no, Tennessee
No,
lost
they
to
lost to
Colorado. They lost to
Northwestern.
Northwestern State.
Yeah, my bad, my
Yeah.
bad. Losing to Northwestern, I don't think is a bad team. I think they're going to catch a lot of people off guard. Obviously, they're catching Georgetown off guard tonight.
No, no,
Uh,
no. This is Northwestern State.
Northwestern State.
Yes.
I didn't watch that TCU game for a reason. Um,
Not Northwestern. Northwestern State, which, for the record, is not in the Northwest, nor is it a state school. It's in Louisiana.
what the heck? I don't know. This college basketball season's off to quite a wild start, I will say. A lot of stuff's happening. Apparently, Florida State sucks. Last night I picked two upsets in my first time betting ever in college basketball. I picked Troy over SF at Florida State and Stetson over against whoever they played. I mean,
Florida. Dude, is Stetson good?
yeah, I think they're good. I mean, I picked them because they were +8, and I thought that coming off a game, where they were close to. Didn't they beat Florida State? Yeah, they beat Florida State,
Yeah,
and
they beat Florida State and beat Florida.
yeah, and I just I
Interestingly.
kind of felt like ride the wave, and I think it was a good pick, obviously, but um, I think another thing that we've seen is a lot of small guards, a lot of upperclassmen small guards are having really, really strong starts to kind of shift us in to our mid-major performers. I want to highlight Micah Thomas for Nicholls State for a second. This is a guy that is a 6'1" guard, not great in stature, but this kid's got a flamethrower. I mean, through his first 2 games for Nicholls State this year, he's averaging 21 points per game, which I mean, in college basketball, that's good. Like, I mean, anything over 18 is really solid. I mean, you're really a good scorer. Um, but I mean, the fact that he's shooting 77.3% from the field and 88.9% from three, through these 2 games is what gets me excited about Micah Thomas. I think
That's ridiculous, by the
I
way.
mean, it's unreal. I think that he deserves a little bit of highlight and a little bit of shout out here um, on this pod. So, shout out Micah Thomas. Keep up the work, dude. I think that if he's continuing to stretch games like these together with this high shooting splits, he's going to be undeniable. And I don't see him as a draft guy, but I think he's going to be a great player in Europe regardless.
Yeah. I think it's 6'1" guards tough to make it in the league nowadays, but I mean, look, if if you can sustain anything near that, he's a catch and
Yeah,
shoot
I mean,
guy.
if he can is in the high 40s and field goal percentage because a lot of his shots are off the dribble and not really right at the basket. If he can finish in the high 40s to 50s and shoot 40+% from three, I mean, that's a really good player.
You never know.
And I
Yeah.
mean, you never know. So moving on, we had a big game a couple nights ago, Michigan versus Eastern Michigan. At Michigan, this was touted as the Amani Bates debut for Eastern Michigan, even though he had a couple of scrimmages and played very well in those. But he came to play against Michigan. 30
Yeah.
points on 12 and 19, 3 for 6 from deep. I was watching this game while I was at work and while I was doing dishes and cracking eggs for breakfast sandwiches. And I had a ball watching Michigan, Hunter Dickinson go right at Amani Bates and Noah Farrakhan. Like, I mean, it was Hunter Dickinson's game, no doubt, but I think that Amani Bates kind of stole the show in a lot of ways. And I do want to make sure that we highlight Noah Farrakhan, who might be one of my favorite guards in the country. He had 19, and he's just a great compliment to Amani Bates. I kind of view them as like he's a mini Amani Bates, kind of with his driving package. But they give me discount Kyrie and KD vibes, and I think that if they can carry that type of swagger throughout the season and play with this amount of confidence, this is a team we're going to see in March. Eastern Michigan is going to win their conference if they can play like this, and we're going to see them in March, and they could be a team. They might make a run. I mean, Amani Bates is good. I don't know. What do you have to say?
Look, I think it would be some story if an Amani Bates led Michigan team
Eastern
comes
Michigan.
back. Sorry, you're right. Eastern Michigan team comes into March and beats a team. That would be hilarious. I would love to see that.
I think if
And
that happens, Amani Bates is a top 20 pick.
yeah, I mean,
I
look,
mean,
small sample size. And
I don't see him as a
I
first
think
rounder right now, but I think that if
no,
he
but
continues,
I think look, the thing he's doing what he needs to do. We were talking about it last week. What Amani Bates needed to do was to come into Eastern Michigan and be the best player on the floor and dominate games.
and then what did I say?
And
Hunter Dickinson's too good, and Michigan's still going to win.
Michigan, well, we both agreed Michigan was the better team. But
Yeah.
Amani Bates did what he needed to do.
Yeah.
And if Amani Bates looks like that in MAC play, I don't even want to think about what kind of numbers he's going to put up. Honestly.
Yeah, it's going to be unreal. Speaking of unreal numbers, James Bishop, I have to highlight, this is, if I'm not mistaken, this is the highest scoring total so far this season by any player in college basketball. James Bishop, the fourth James Bishop the fourth dropped the 2-4-4 right there, 44 points on Hofstra. And I mean, he did it on great shooting splits as well, much similar to Micah Thomas as an upperclassman guard, who's electric off the bounce and can score in bunches. George Washington is a team that you're gonna have to watch out for, and James Bishop the fourth is a name that I want you guys to keep on your radar. I want to keep moving though. Some stocks on the rise. I want to highlight Adama Sanogo, but I want to give you the floor to talk about him.
I was watching just a little brief story about Adamas Sanogo tonight. So for those of you who follow me on Twitter, I tweeted a little thread about Adamas Sanogo today. The thing that's impressed me about Sanogo, who dropped 27 and 15 boards in the win against Boston, he was known, at least in my book, as a guy who screens, he rolls, he's physical, plays good defense, all that stuff. Undersized, he's about 6'8", 6'9", and didn't really have any sort of perimeter game whatsoever. Was pretty much, gonna get a lot of his work done on hooks and layups and dunks. Now, I go to watch his Boston tape, and what do you know? But Adama Sanogo is setting screens, popping to the perimeter, and shooting threes. And he did it again tonight. At least in one instance that I saw, Adama Sanogo has extended his range to the 3-point line. And that is scary for him as a prospect. I also saw I turn on the game from the Michigan State Kentucky game, and I see Adama Sanogo just on the floor, diving, chasing, just scrounging after a ball, just to attest to the kid's motor. At the rate he's going right now, he's a bona fide NBA prospect.
I want to interrupt for 1 second, and just highlight one thing that I'm seeing so far in the Kentucky-Michigan State game. Cason Wallace has 7 steals with 11:56 left in the second half.
Dude, did I text you? He had 3 steals in like the first 2 minutes.
I mean, I was watching the first 2 minutes of the game, and
wasn't that ridiculous?
Yeah, I mean, we've said what we've said about Cason Wallace. Jrue Holiday comp is real. That's all I'm saying. That's what we've been saying. That's what we've been saying. I don't mean to sound like a repeater, but I did say Cason Wallace was in the top 15 on our board.
You want to pontificate on that a little bit?
No, I don't have anything to pontificate about. Marcus Sasser, guys. Marcus Sasser for Houston. Last night put up a good game. But I want to highlight the fact that, although his shooting hasn't been there quite this year, and that's kind of been his calling card as a college player so far, he's still done a fantastic job of staying active on the court. He is truly the leader and the guy that fuels that Houston team. You can just see the energy he brings on the court. He plays at full speed 100% of the time. His pace is great. I mean, he has a sharp handle. It is hard to believe that this guy isn't one of the best guards in the country. And I will stand and argue, and I will die on that hill that Marcus Sasser is one of the best guards in the country. I think he's a great two-way player. He had a good combine this last offseason. He was a guy I thought should have gotten drafted. And I think if he wouldn't have gotten hurt late in the year for that Houston team, they make a definitely better finish to the season. And he's higher on people's draft boards. I think it's just a matter of time before this guy starts getting the love he deserves. Also want to shout out Tremont Mark. Had an absolute heater last night in Houston's game, and had 23 on really, really high shooting splits. I think he only missed like 1 or 2 shots from the field. This Houston team looks like one of the more talented teams in the country. Definitely one of the most well-rounded for sure. Jarace Walker didn't have a great night. There were some things that maybe I was a little questionable of, but it's early, and I'm not gonna dock a guy's stake or stock for one game. We'll get later on in the year. We'll start talking about guys' stocks on the fall, and I think that that'll be more of our later season. I think it's still too early to count anybody out in college basketball. Speaking of counting somebody out, Terrence Shannon Jr. got counted out last year during his draft process, so he decided, you know what, I'm going to go to Illinois. And this kid dropped 30 last night against Monmouth.
He was
drilled 4 threes, had a really, really well-rounded game. And he kind of had his hands all over the game. I think he had a steal, he had a couple steals. He had a block or two. I mean, he's been great this year. For an Illinois team that has, one of my favorite players in the country, Ty Rodgers, on it. And, Illinois looks legit. I think the Big Ten is going to be dominated by, the two teams we talked about today so far, Michigan and Illinois. And I mean, they're right there.
Michigan State too.
What?
Michigan State is if they lose these next 3 games, which they could because it's a tough schedule, they could be the best 1-4 team in the country.
They could be. Moving on. Let's talk about the Ryans. For Creighton, we got Kalkbrenner and Nemhard. I mean, you want to highlight this one?
The Kalkbrenner stuff is ridiculous. For those of you who don't know, in his last 2 games, Ryan Kalkbrenner is 20 for 21 from the field. 20 for 21. He's missed 1 shot. And Brian Nemhard has been the guy to get him the ball. Nemhard's doled out 18 assists in the last 2 games. Over half of those, 10 of them, if you're keeping track, went to Kalkbrenner. Most of them at the rim. Kalkbrenner's not doing much perimeter damage, but he doesn't need to.
He doesn't need to. He just needs to get his positioning and let Ryan Nemhard give him the ball. And Nemhard,
they've run this.
Go ahead,
dude. They're running the same pick and roll action, and Nemhard's putting it into a spot where only Kalkbrenner can get it. Kalkbrenner goes up. Kalkbrenner goes up and gets it. Kalkbrenner puts the ball in the hoop. It's very easy.
I think that Creighton is going to be on a roll, especially offensively. I think they have so many weapons. I mean, their starting five is probably one of the best. We've talked about it. We talked about in the preseason. We said they probably have one of the best starting fives in the country with Ryan Nemhard, Trey Alexander, Baylor Shireman, Arthur Kaluma, and Ryan Kalkbrenner. And I mean, they are showing that they're a very talented team. I mean, do not sleep on Creighton. I think that they're going to be undefeated until they get into Big East play. That's my bold take. I don't think I've looked at their schedule. I don't think that there's a team that's going to beat them in the preseason. They didn't, schedule an extremely hard schedule. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong.
They're better than Tech. They should beat Tech. They're better. I mean, Texas Tech is not an easy game, but I think that they're a better team.
They're ranked for right now, but I don't think Texas Tech's going to be ranked at the end of the year.
No, I don't either. Texas Tech has not impressed me in what I've seen thus far. They're a decent team, but they don't really have. I mean, they have a good system, and they play the typical grind them out Texas Tech basketball.
Chris Beard's gone.
Yeah, but they still play the same
style. I know. I'm just trying to create some
content. I mean, so is Kevin McCullough and
Terrence.
Right.
Jalen
we'll see tonight, by the way.
This is my guy, Jalen Wilson. This is really our
other guy we'll see tonight.
He's been great so far. For Kansas, I mean, he's displayed that he has improved his ability to shoot off the dribble. And I think that that's the number one thing that he needed to do as a wing was be able to attack closeouts. And I mean, he can finish around the basket, like no problem. That wasn't a problem for him last year. He was a dynamic transition threat. But I think the biggest thing is the ability to, rise up and shoot the midi. He's looks a lot more comfortable off the bounce, not as kind of stiff. He was very stiff last year, and I think that it really limited his ability. It's something that, a lot of people criticize DeAndre Hunter for. He's a great 3-and-D player, but, doesn't really have that lateral agility that you need to create. And I can see that Jalen Wilson's been working on it. Speaking of things that, players have been working on, Caleb Love has been struggling from 3. That's not something that we were talking about in March last year. He was on fire.
I know, right?
But, I think one thing that you have to acknowledge with Caleb Love, he had a 25-point game against Charleston, but, yes, the competition isn't good, but he has gotten to the basket a lot more frequently and has converted at a lot higher rate than he did last year. And those are one of those things where that is not something that really falls off the cliff. You know what I mean? I think once they get into conference play, it might teeter off a touch because there's some good, there's obviously talent throughout the ACC, especially in the front court with guys like Lively. But I think seeing that he's attacking the basket more and he's very confident, drawing contact and things like that are all good signs from Caleb Love, who was not doing that a year ago.
Yeah, the one other thing before we move on Caleb Love, the defensive buy-in is there as well. And I think that's been a big question around him in the past. So really good for his stock moving forward to see him buy in defensively.
Yeah. And then talking about Drew Timme, they had a narrow escape of Michigan State there on the aircraft carrier. And he played great inside the paint. We wanted to note that he had 13 boards and dropped 22. I mean, that's a Drew Timme game.
Very
And he
Drew
was able
Timmy
to
game.
and he was able to hold on for the win, which is all that matters to that guy, I'm sure.
Yeah. Didn't really make me think any more of Gonzaga, to be honest.
Mm-mm. Honestly, it
Um,
made me feel a lot less comfortable about Gonzaga. But then again, I hate to be, beat a dead horse, but at the beginning of the year, what did I say about Gonzaga? They don't have any
yeah,
depth, no depth.
no.
And I
And
mean, it showed against Michigan State, which is a well-rounded team. They have
yeah,
players that
Michigan
bring
State is a very deep team.
Malik
Uh,
Hall, right? Malik Hall. They got Joey
Malik Hall,
Hauser.
Jaden Akins, AJ Hoggart,
I
Jaden
mean,
Akins. Yeah,
the wing position there is really strong with Michigan State, and I think that they were able to exploit a lot of Gonzaga's weaknesses. But Drew Timme is Drew Timme and was able to hold on for the dub. I don't know if that's going to happen every time that they have problems though there in Gonzaga. I
yeah.
think especially with some of their games coming up that we'll talk about, they're going to be put to the test for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
I think they're gonna struggle against a couple in both of their games this week.
it's my favorite time in the podcast. Um, it's the NCAA Women's Games of the Week. Yes, Games of the Week because
Dude,
we have two of them this week. I wanted to take a
dude.
moment to highlight the two games from last night. We had our first in college basketball. We had our first top five teams matchup last night. Texas number 3 took on number 5 UConn. And it was a close one. I mean, Texas made a little run there at the end of the game and kind of and put a little anxiety in some of those UConn players and coaches' bellies. But UConn was able to hold on for the win. It was pretty much a shootout. The two teams combined for 16 threes, and both of them shot around 40%. Azzy Fudd for UConn had 32 and shot extremely well from deep. She's an exciting player to watch, and she might be another star in the making for UConn. They're able to crank them out like it's no business. And looks like they got another one. Looks like they got another one there in Connecticut. I also want to highlight last night there was another game. Tennessee has had a rough start to the season. Two early losses to really good teams. We mentioned them last week. They played against Ohio State last week, if I'm not mistaken, and couldn't get the dub. But they took on number 12 Indiana and number 11. Obviously, it was number 11 Tennessee. And they lost by 13, or 12. Not their best performance. Mackenzie Holmes for Indiana had 16 and 10, and was 7 to 12 from the field. IU's got a really, really intense paint attack. They're really dynamic in the pick and roll. And I think Indiana's going to be a team to watch. If I were to make a prediction, I think they'll be somewhere in the Elite Eight at the end of the year. They have a lot of really talented players. Some of their guards are really skilled, getting the ball down low and taking care of the rock. So previewing kind of the next week of basketball, this has kind of been a short episode ish, but we like to keep these moving for you guys. You don't want to waste your nights or your day or your
Yeah.
morning whenever you're watching this. But there are some crucial games that we want to make you guys aware of in the next week. I mean, this is when the season starts
On both ends, dude.
on
There's
both ends.
we have we have four top 10 matchups in men's and women's college basketball this week.
Yep. Um,
Four.
so obviously we have Kentucky,
Four.
Michigan State that's going on right now. That's on ESPN, and then it's a double header with Duke, Kansas later at 9:30. You can get that on ESPN, and I mean, I'll just do a little check in on the Michigan State Kentucky game quick while Julian takes us through our next couple.
Next up, there's still plenty more to come, folks. Don't worry. Gonzaga playing against number 12. What were they? 10 or 12 at this point? Maybe 11. Texas, 9:30 on the 16th, which is tomorrow. So when you listen to it during the day, just know Gonzaga, Texas, 9:30 p.m. tonight.
Yep. These are all
Friday,
Eastern
three
times,
more
by the
fun
way.
ones.
These are all Eastern times.
I appreciate you pointing that out.
Yes.
Friday, we have a battle of the
Florida,
lost to Stetsons.
the Battle of Florida. Both teams have lost to Stetson so far this year. Want to duke it out to decide who is going to be the inferior team here. Two teams that have been major upsets so far. You know, wait, we forgot to give our predictions. Who do you think? It's 49. It's 50-49 in the Michigan State Kentucky game. Who do you think's going to win that one? Quick.
Give me Kentucky.
Okay, I got Kentucky as well. I think it's Oscar Tshiebwe is starting to heat up. Duke, Kansas. I have Kansas.
We can't say and pick every game, can we?
I have Kansas. I
No, I
who's
also have
playing for Duke? Is
Kansas.
Derek Lively and Derek Whitehead playing for Duke tonight?
I don't know.
Exactly. All right.
I'm gonna take
Moving
Kansas
on.
as well.
You want to go check and see if they're playing tonight quick while I take us through the rest of the slate?
Yeah.
Gonzaga, Texas. I'm gonna go Texas. I think Dylan Mitchell is gonna have another good game. He's been playing very well in the defensive end. Who do you got in that one, Julian? Gonzaga, Texas?
I'm gonna take Gonzaga. I just think Drew Timmy's gonna be the best player on the floor, and I don't think Texas is the team that's gonna give Gonzaga that many problems.
All right, I can see that. You know, I appreciate you playing devil's advocate there, though. Florida State versus Florida. I'm gonna take Florida. Colin Castleton's gonna have an absolute field day, against FSU.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Florida. Without Bob Miller, Florida State is
They're trash.
struggling.
I mean, Leonard Hamilton's team is. I mean, I looked. They are one of the worst defensive teams in the country to start the year. And I don't think that's something that you could say about a Leonard Hamilton team very often.
No. I mean, look, I really hope that they're better once Baba comes back, but at this point I doubt it.
We got Villanova, Michigan State. Obviously, Michigan State has had some tough games so far, and it doesn't stop tonight. You know, I got Michigan State though. Villanova still without Cam Whitmore, and they've had a rough start to the year without him.
Yeah, I mean, look, Michigan State's a very good team, despite their record. I think that their depth is their depth challenge Gonzaga, their depth challenging Kentucky. I think their depth's gonna be too much for Villanova, especially without Cam Whitmore.
I agree. And then still on Friday, we have Illinois versus UCLA.
I'm gonna take Illinois.
I'm gonna take Illinois as well. I really like what I've seen from Terrence Shannon, Ty Rogers, Sky Clark included. They've been playing really well as a team. I don't think it's gonna stop there. Then we got on Sunday, I believe, or is this? Yeah,
This is
Sunday.
on Sunday, yeah.
Yeah, we got
Dude,
Kentucky
Sunday we have
versus.
two top five matchups, one in the men's, one in the women's.
Yeah, we got Kentucky versus Gonzaga at 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. I'm gonna take Kentucky in that one.
Yeah, I think based on the way that we've been talking about Gonzaga, it would be pretty crazy if one of us took him tonight.
Uh,
Battle of Timmy and Sheway, that's a fun one.
yeah, the battle of the player of the year candidates last year, the two front runners for sure.
Yeah.
And then we got Houston, Oregon. This is a game I'm excited about. I'm excited to see Oregon take on some tougher competition. They've had a really easy schedule to start the year.
Well,
And
they
Houston
did lose
obviously, you know, has played very well as a team. And I think that, you know, we've talked about them. They're a very talented team, one of the more talented teams in the country. But I'm gonna go with Oregon.
I can't take a team that lost to UC Irvine over a team that I believe to be a national championship contender in Houston.
I just have a gut feeling about Oregon in this one.
I think Oregon's resiliency is something that we're going to be talking about in this game. Because again,
Pauly
when you
Dante
get
and
upset like that
Kalel
early
Ware
in
have
the
to have big
season,
games.
they do. And Kalel Ware did not do very much against UC Irvine.
Yeah, I mean,
So
besides shot blocking, he hasn't really provided much this year. I mean, and this is a guy that we weren't very high on, but I'm gonna bet on Oregon. Um, I think that front court is gonna give Houston problems. I'm a
I think
little
it's the other way
shaky. I'm
around.
a
I
little
think
shaky on the Houston front court depth. But I want to wrap it up, flipping over the women's side before we close it. Sunday night, I want to make sure that everybody tries to tune in if they can, if they're interested, if they're intrigued. You got UConn
You should
taking on
be.
NC State. And obviously I talked about Azzy Fudd earlier, who dropped 32 against a number 3 team in Texas. I'm excited to see her square off against Diamond Johnson, who has been electric shooting the ball so far this season. She's been shooting 66% from 3 through 3 games, I'm pretty sure, for NC State. So it's going to be a shootout again. I mean, most of the college women's basketball, I'm going to let you know, has turned into a drive-and kick game. So I hope you love open 3-point shots. I hope you love a lot of pick and roll. I hope you love a lot of post-ups, because that's basically all these games are. But the shooting and the skill is still there. Like it's very entertaining. I think I'm going to tune into this game probably over one of those games in the men's over one of the games in the men's slate.
I mean, Caleb, that's not even the best game tomorrow that night.
Correct me.
Correct you.
Yeah,
Caleb, we got South Carolina playing against Stanford.
Oh,
The two best teams ranked. The 2 top ranked teams in college basketball on the women's side are squaring off on Sunday night. Can't miss game. If you want to watch a college women's game, watch Don Staley's South Carolina Gamecocks.
now that's a real team right there.
Aaliyah Boston still probably the best player in women's basketball right now on the college slate.
I think she might be one of the best women's basketball players in the world. Honestly, she's probably going to be the first pick in the WNBA draft. I think that she's pretty much got that wrapped up. And I mean, it's just exciting to see teams that are really, really well coached, really, really talented square off. And I think that a big reason why we both have, started to watch more women's basketball is because we have a true appreciation for college basketball as a whole. And seeing these student athletes compete and really on the women's side, I mean, you're seeing a lot more. You see all 4-year players pretty much, and 3-year players. You're seeing well-rounded teams that have been developed, are very well coached, have a specific strategy, and it creates for some really, really good matchups. So I will not forgive myself for not including that on the sheet, as that was my responsibility to cover the women's side this week, and I failed. So thank you, Julian, for picking up, where I obviously leave all my errors. You're the best. So we're going to close it up, guys.
Yeah, that was a fun episode.
Yeah,
please watch college basketball this week. If there's any week to watch it, early in the season.
This is the week. I think that we're not going to get as good of a week for a while, unfortunately.
Till conference
play, but even then, I mean, we're not going to be seeing top 5 matchups and top 10 matchups every night, multiple times.
Look, that Stanford SC game could be a preview of the national championship.
It could be. UConn, I think, would argue with you there, and I think Azzy Fudd is she's a bucket, bro. I mean, I was watching. I didn't watch the full game, disclaimer, but I was watching a lot of the highlights of it, and she's so skilled, very quick, great change of pace, and she's an exciting shooter. I think that this is a great year to watch basketball in general. So I've been super happy with the NBA season so far, super happy with the start of college basketball season for the men's side, and super happy with the start of the women's side. So I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day. Obviously like, comment, subscribe wherever you're watching this. If it's on YouTube, in the future, we're looking to continue to improve this content. So if you see some changes in maybe some of the formatting, you might start seeing some clips circulate its way through. You never know. You never know what I'm working on and pontificating about.
Caleb the schemer out here.
I am a schemer. I'm all about the schemes, bro. All about making money moves. So I hope you guys have a good one, and we're off the clock.